Hi, this is a presentation of device management, and this is just to tell you the basics about the configuration files and the operating system files, because I think you already know that you are able to take the output of a show running configuration, put it into a configuration file and save it. And then you can take the configuration file and read it into a new or the same router or switch that you already have to make it easier to get a backup of your configuration. You can also back up, for instance, your iOS files, and it's probably also a good idea to have a backup of that. You can see the entire file system by using show file system, and you can list the different files with a dia command, or print working directory or cd to change it. So where can you back up to? Well, we have seen to just back up to a text file, but of course if you want to back up your operating system, well then we are going to copy, for instance, to a TFTP server. It's a trivial FTP server, so it doesn't require any kind of authentication. It's something that you typically have on your LAN. And when you have that, well then you can copy both your running config, your startup config, or your iOS file to this TFTP server. And you can copy to and from the TFTP if you want to do that. Some of the newer routers, of course, also have a USB, so you can copy your running config to the USB flash also. That's maybe easier to do. We have done the password recovery a couple of times. The whole idea here is to bypass the configuration file, and we do that by setting the configuration register to 0x2142. That means bypass configuration file. We enter the ROM by hitting the break key while the router is booting up. And then in the ROM we can change the configuration register. Then we make the changes that we want, and then we save it, and then we also remember to set the config register back to 2102, which means that we will not bypass the configuration file. Yeah, all these different iOS images that we can have there are different versions depending on what kind of functionality you need. In the routers and the switches, it's normally that you keep the operating system to what you really need. If you only need the basic setup, well then you have an operating system that only take care of that. If you need some specific protocols, that could be IPsec for tunneling or whatever, then you can take an operating system which has that functionality and put that into your router instead. So, but the whole idea is to just keep it the things that you need. And if you don't need security, well, then don't put it in. Keep the default. And also, if you're, for instance, using voice over IP, then you can add a operating system that can handle that. But if you don't need that, well, don't have it. So you can have different technology packages, it's called. It's the base for the basic stuff, the security, the data, the unified communication, which is if you need voice over IP, for instance. You can see it, and you can actually see it on the file name when you use a show flash. I don't think you will ever remember it, but you can look it up if you don't know what kind of an operating system that you are working on. And as I said earlier on, you can copy this back and forth to a TFTP server. You can, if you have lost it, or if you need an update of your operating system, you should, of course, have enough flash RAM to do that. Many of the routers we have here do not have enough flash RAM to keep 2 operating systems, but if you have, you can actually have 2, and in the boot system command you can tell what kind of an operating system do you want to start up on. Otherwise, you need to delete the old one first, and then you actually have a router without an operating system, and then copy the new one in the same operation. Otherwise, you could have some challenges, but of course it can be solved. This is a Cisco course, and there are, of course, something about the licenses also. You get typically the default and then the basic operating system. If you want enhanced functionality, then you can buy a license for that, and then you have the Cisco licensing thing that will take care of all your licenses, which is also a good thing. You can do the show version, show license, and save the licenses if you buy a new one. So there are opportunities here in the operating systems to keep track of your different licenses that you have. Yeah, and that was it. Thank you.